Americans really ready to get back to business? The answer may not be so straightforward. A recent poll conducted by Monmouth University found 63% of people thought restrictions are getting lifted actually too fast. But 29% said states were not moving quickly enough. And of course, much of this depends on where you actually live. Take Michigan, for example, where state House and state Republican leaders are definitely ready to get their constituents back to work and have even filed a lawsuit against Democratic Governor Gretchen Whitmer. They argue the governor's extension of the state's state of emergency is unlawful and unconstitutional. And acting in his capacity as an individual citizen, one lawmaker, Republican Congressman Paul Mitchell, has, quote, even filed his own lawsuit to overturn what he calls unreasonable emergency actions, saying, quote, I think we need to clarify the extent of what an emergency is and the extent of those powers and reinforce that people have constitutional rights. Now, the lawsuits challenge whether or not the governor has the power to continue a statewide emergency for more than 28 days without approval from the legislature. Democrats in the state have called the lawsuits political stunts. Well, here to talk about that is Michigan Congressman Paul Mitchell. Congressman, thank you for joining us.
Good to see you.
So is your issue more that she doesn't have the power to do this, or you actually don't like what she's actually doing in terms of the restrictions she's putting in place?
I think both. I don't think she has the power to do that in the 1945 Act. I think there's a big difference between the health challenge we have now and, quote, an emergency. When she first took action, we were not sure what coronavirus would do, what impact that would have in the healthcare system. We now understand it better and have that under control. You can't call it an emergency when you're going into 2 months and 3 months of restrictions. She's also called her powers a dial, that she can dial up and dial back whenever she sees fit. Last time I checked, under the United States Constitution and Michigan's Constitution, one person was not the sole determiner of what we get to do in terms of our rights. See a doctor, visit our grandchildren across the state, go to our cabin up north. Those are all things that have been constrained, that have been prohibited, loosened up over time, then restrained. We need to have a consistent set of rules on this and not have one person become the sole determiner of that for the entire state. And that's what's been going on.
Yeah, and it sounds like both she doesn't have the power, and it sounds like you also have an issue with some of the sort of draconian ways that she's put in place that keep people from going and doing things that might seem a little basic. But the president has said, when asked, that all these decisions are left up to the government. And this is now what's happened. He's passed it down to governors. Would you rather in some way have the federal government issue states some kind of overarching guidelines, or is your opinion, rather, that the governor should do it, but they have to do it more in line with their legislatures?
Well, I think we're a republic. States have rights. I think they should exercise them wisely. I believe the governor should have worked with the legislature in Michigan. There's a 1976 law that did apply, they were working under, that required the governor after 28 days to work with the legislature on a set of constraints or prohibitions or restrictions. She didn't do that. She wouldn't negotiate on those. She said that wasn't going to happen. And she went to this 1945 law, which basically gives her unlimited power to declare an emergency and decide what she wants to do for an unlimited period of time. So that's, in my opinion, unreasonable. And we need to repeal that law eventually. And I started a petition process that will do that as well. What the court decides, the next step is we're going to have a petition process to resolve this issue so that this governor or the governors in the future can't decide to do whatever they wish, declare any emergency, and then institute whatever power she wants.
Congressman, some people on the left are calling this a political stunt by you suing Governor Whitmer. What do you hope it comes from this lawsuit?
I hope we get some balance in our government. We have 3 equal branches of government at the state as well as the federal level. At the state level, the governor has decided to overturn or lengthen court orders, to lengthen statute of limitations, with no court action whatsoever. She's functioned in many cases as state courts. She clearly has overridden the state legislature. And I don't believe that our state constitution or the U.S. Constitution provided for that. It's not how we created this country. And one person should not be the determiner of whether or not, as I said earlier, I can go see a physician to have my knee replacement looked at and underway. I tell you what, if the president did this nationwide, the furor would be extraordinary. You know that. Yeah. So the left the left would go wild about that.
Of course, the governor didn't sit back and just take this. She actually responded. Let me play her response for you. It says, she says that 3 assistant attorney generals and 1 assistant solicitor general filed the governor's response in court Tuesday ahead of oral arguments and said, quote, having lost the political gamble, they are doubling down on this lawsuit. Whitmer's team argued, but this is more of a political bluff for dissatisfied co-equal branch of government holding a losing hand under applicable law. It's a power grab cloaked in the fineries of unfounded legal reasoning. Congressman, though, one of the things that I want to get to, we've got someone from your state coming up that's doing what I think would be, in all estimations, argued a very reasonable act of civil disobedience. He's asking people throughout Michigan to go to work. But that I think is pretty much the definition of civil disobedience. But there are people in Michigan who have come to the State House in Lansing with guns and weapons in a show of force. Is this the right and appropriate way to protest?
Well, 2 responses. Do you have the barber coming on next, Sean? Is that the gentleman coming on next in your show?
We've got this gentleman who is organizing the Every Business is Essential protest, asking everyone to go to work next week on May 21st.
I think people need to go to work. I think the stunts we've seen, and I do consider it a stunt, at the legislature, at the Capitol, bringing their long guns and going in and storming the Capitol is a distraction. It distracts from the message we're trying to send, which is we all have constitutional rights that are being bulldozed by this governor under this set of acts that she's moved forward on, that we want the courts to overturn, and then we need to move forward legislation to never let this happen again. But the idea that people are going to show up in Lansing with their guns to exercise the Second Amendment right and take them into the Capitol, I think is overkill. It's unnecessary. It's a distraction. It gives some of the media, especially the left, a talking point that these people are all crazy. I mean, that simply is not helpful to the message we're trying to send.
Okay. Thank you, Congressman. I appreciate you joining us. Stay safe in Michigan.
Do take care.
All right. Well, also in Michigan, as we just mentioned, a small business owner is using billboards to encourage people to reopen their businesses next week on May 21st. It's what he's calling the All Business is Essential campaign. And so far, the campaign has netted more than $27,000 as part of a GoFundMe account in less than 20 days. While Michigan Governor Gretchen Whitmer has allowed some business sectors to reopen, like construction and manufacturing companies, protesters say the stay-at-home orders are ruining people's lives. So here to talk about that is the leader of this All Business is Essential campaign, Erik Kiilunen. Erik, thank you for being here.
You're welcome. Thank you for inviting me. I appreciate it.
So, Erik, I know one of the companies that you own is a roofing company. Have you guys been able to stay operational?
Well, we opened that company a couple of weeks ago, absolutely in defiance of the ban. And I have 10 employees over there that we watched a book of business just absolutely vaporize overnight when the rule first came down. And after a few weeks, we did get the PPP funding, but I'm looking at it as a business guy saying, you don't just shut off a business and restart it. It just takes time. And I'm looking at it, and then all of a sudden I see the extensions coming, and I'm looking and saying, look, you're messing with my livelihood now, and this is something I'm just not going to back down. I've got 10 employees that depend on me. We're probably feeding 30 mouths up here. I look at the COVID stats that I started digging into because I now have an interest in it. And I don't see the alarm. I mean,
can I ask you a question? So, look, I'm scared of heights, so you're never going to find me on a roof. But I think it's kind of odd that I don't, every time I've seen people work on a roof, there's usually not 10 or more people standing on a roof. So I do think it's a little odd that they're banning a company like yours from going up and doing whatever you guys want to do. But when you ask people next week on May 21st to go back to work, are you requiring all of your employees to go back to work?
No, I don't require anybody to do anything. We live in the United States last time I checked. If you're not comfortable coming back and joining society again, then that's your prerogative. You can stay home and put your mask on. But as far as the rest of us that have done the math and taken a look at the numbers and assessed the risks and says, this is a risk I'm willing to take because I find it infinitesimally small, let's go back to work. Right. We don't need a governor or a government to tell us what to do. We frankly know better. And I just was listening earlier on the legal action. Unfortunately, this state needs life support. And
you seem to be putting up billboards, doing this all very peacefully. What do you say to those people who are, I asked, Congressman, just before you on this, what do you say to the people who are going to Lansing and marching on the State House with guns?
Well, I think, and I would agree with his look at it. It's a distraction, but I look at it and it actually brings fear to me. And it's because, that's the next step. And that's unfortunate. So I look at it and let's just do everything peaceably. Let's keep the sanity here. Let's get back to work, Michigan. That's what it's about. Michigan, the United States, let's just get back to work. We can sort the mess out when we're done. But I promise you, we have a $13 billion state economy. We've lost $3 billion already. You drop another $2 billion out of that, and the poverty that's going to be created by that is going to create a whole lot more carnage and death than COVID ever can.
Right. Well, Erik, I wish you, your company, and your employees all the best. Please stay safe, and thank you for sharing your story with us. All right, when we return, we'll talk to the chairman of the new China task force in the House of Representatives, Texas Congressman Mike McCall, about his efforts to scrutinize China's threat to our national security. And later, Democrats are proposing a new stimulus package. But is this just a stunt to buy votes? Stick around.